Some people might have a little rock and roll pneumonia.
You wanted the best, you got the best from my home studio on Long Island, New York. Welcome to Ian Scotto Rocks. I am your host, Ian Scotto. And what is going on with Vince Neil? There's a lot of speculation right now regarding this topic because Mötley Crüe has had some major cancellations and postponements. They were supposed to be doing this first-time festival happening in Maryland, and it was going to be Def Leppard and Mötley Crüe as the main headliners. Mötley Crüe dropped off due to problems happening with Vince Neil that have not been disclosed, and they were replaced with Alice in Chains. Then Mötley Crüe were going to be doing this residency in Las Vegas. That all the dates were canceled and postponed to a later time, meaning they had to cancel tickets if you had tickets rather than them giving you to another show, because it would just be a whole mess with the amount of shows that they were doing. I believe 10 shows. So they moved it to a later date, and no one knows what's going on with Vince Neil. They're just saying it's health issues and that it's health related in some way, but no other further information has really been given. I have some ideas of what's going on, but the thing is, I have no contacts at Mötley Crüe or anything. Anything I'm going to say is purely speculation. And one thing is that I heard Eddie Trunk speaking about this, and I'm probably going to echo a lot of things that he said. But unlike me, Eddie Trunk does have contacts. He does know all the guys in Mötley Crüe personally, and he didn't give any information definitively. But what he did say is, I'm hearing all types of different things. I'm hearing one thing that's kind of minor, and I'm hearing one thing that could be really major. The other thing that happened, and I didn't do a video on this, I could have, I heard about it right when it happened, was the plane that Vince Neil owns crashing. There were fatalities involved, obviously not Vince Neil. I could have done a clickbait video on that, as a million other people did, but I just feel like it doesn't relate to rock news at all. I mean, I'm not going to say I'm above all that. I could be clickbaity, but it does have to have something to do with rock, and this was just a plane owned by a rock star, so it was a bit of a stretch. Rest in peace to whoever passed from that, and whoever was injured and all of that, but it wasn't Vince Neil, so I didn't want to speculate on any of that, but this I do. It is no secret that Vince Neil has struggled with alcohol issues throughout his entire career. And you look at the difference between him and a guy like Nikki Sixx. Nikki Sixx lived all that debauchery, and he now seems to be on a totally straight and narrow path. He's been married to the same woman for a number of years, has a younger daughter, is in phenomenal shape for a man of his age, and has been sober for a very long time. Now, I know all those guys got sober during the Dr. Feelgood era. It definitely appears Tommy Lee has had slip-ups since then. We know that, like, when he got into a fight with his son in more recent years, his son was saying he had alcohol problems, and he may have been doing other things as well. I don't know what's going on with him, but he seems to be able to perform at a high level regardless. Hopefully he is sober, because all of these guys we know have an addictive personality, if you're a member of Mötley Crüe. Mick Mars, who knows what's going on with him? He's kind of a mystery. I mean, he put out a solo album, but he doesn't seem to have any issues. He already has enough health issues with the degenerative disease that he struggles with, and I don't think he's adding anything to that. Vince Neil, on the other hand, we just know from his arrest record, right? I mean, you could look back in like the mid-2000s, Vince Neil getting into fights at brothels, things like that. Vince Neil showing up drunk on stage, like time and again throughout his career, where there seems to be periods where he's on a straight and narrow path, and then everything turns to total debauchery. You know, I just think he is definitive of the type of guy who can't stay away from his temptations or addictions, no matter what they are. I mean, that's why even after all that plastic surgery, if you remember the remaking Vince Neil they did on VH1 in the mid-2000s, he got like a tummy tuck. I believe he got all types of facial reconstruction. He got a personal trainer. His personal trainer, by the way, being Craig Titus, who murdered a woman. Strange side note there. You know, that happened later on. Vince Neil was also on like a little video biography on that guy, Craig Titus, who's still in jail for what he did. But yeah, despite all that, I mean, he has gained all of that weight back. Does not look like he's in good shape. Does not look like he's enjoying being on stage, quite honestly. And the thing that I'm going to echo that Eddie Trunk said is you really feel like when these guys said they were retiring and hanging it up, they should have stuck by that, because Nikki Sixx made these statements where he was saying, I don't want us to be a shadow of the band that we once were, and we're touring without all the original members and not giving us it our all. And then they come back, and it's almost like a bad omen. Tommy Lee is injured. There was speculation that was due to a fight with Vince Neil. I have no idea the veracity of that, but that was a problem. But then he was back up on stage. Mick Mars only did that one tour, and he made statements that he wished they didn't come back. He thinks they should have stayed out. They brought on John Five, who's a great guitarist. John Five gives a killer performance. So does Nikki Sixx and Tommy Lee. And truthfully, look, I love Vince Neil. I love all those guys in the band. But the weakest link at this point is Vince Neil. I saw them last year at that intimate Bowery Ballroom performance. And you feel like if it was Nikki Sixx, Tommy Lee, and John Five, and calling it something else, they could be giving an amazing performance. But it just kind of dragged down by Vince Neil. And when I talk about Vince Neil having alcohol issues, I really don't think I'm saying anything that's some big secret. I mean, this is from a few years back. I want to give credit where it's due, as you can see on here. This is from an account called Skunked Life. And look, I don't want to laugh at alcoholism, but when Vince Neil gives this cameo, it's very hard not to laugh at, like, he put it out there for this guy. And I'll play a little bit of this for you guys. Oh, and let me pause this here so you can see what it says. So it says this video is for Derek, and it's booked by a guy named Christian. All right, here's what he wants Vince to say here. And this is from 2020, so this was 5 years back. Relatively recently, right? Happy 40th birthday to Derek from Christian, Mom, Tanya, Ethan, and Blake. Shout at the devil to start off this new decade and take the opportunity to kickstart your auto search and sales. Listen to the doctor and feel good about the big 4-0 in 2020. It's a little bit of a weird message, right? A little bit of a tongue twister I could see. I could see someone stumbling through this, but Vince does more than stumble through this, so I'm going to play it for you guys.
Hey, Decker, this is Vince Neil.
Okay, like I said, it's hard not to laugh. The guy's name is Derek, right? It clearly says Derek. Here's how he starts the video once again.
Hey, Decker, this is Vince Neil. I want to say happy birthday, brother. This is actually from Christian, Mom, Ethan,
By the way,
Blake.
it's Christian Mom, all right? Christian, comma, Mom. And he says Christian Womp.
Ethan and Blake.
Let's go back here.
Christian, Mom,
Womp.
Ethan, and Blake. So keep on rocking, shout the devil, and do some feel good stuff in big old 4-0, you man. All right, see you later.
Man, I mean, I hope he didn't pay thousands for that cameo, which he probably did, because, geez, that is yeah, I mean, that is just not a great cameo there. I mean, I guess for the entertainment factor, it went kind of viral when it went out, I remember. But like, that does not look like a guy who's still rocking on stage and giving it his all. And actually, that'll be a good transition to, if you see Vince perform live, and I mentioned Eddie Trunk, he was on Eddie Trunk with the other guys, and I almost felt like the other guys were covering for him during the interview. I vividly remember he referred to the song Dogs of War as Gods of War, and he's just kind of slurring his words. And I just felt like Vince sounds as much inebriated as he ever has. And once again, purely speculation. I have no definitive proof of this, but I think this is alcohol related. I saw Mötley Crüe a year back when they did their intimate performance at Bowery Ballroom. And once again, the other guys sounded great, and Vince he looks like he doesn't want to be there. So this is from Asaph Barlev on YouTube here from a performance about a year ago. And look, some people hate the Dogs of War song. I actually think it's a really good song in studio. But then when they try to replicate it live, I mean, this is what it sounds like. I mean, he's real. This was the song's debut, but I've seen other live debut. But I've seen other performances, and it's pretty similar. You know, you give a little leeway to that. But and the other problem too is this guy never rests his voice because he's out there on the road solo while Mötley Crüe is out there, and he's continually done these shows. Now, Vince Neil, I know people are going to say Vince Neil never had the best voice in music, and it was just the attitude of Mötley Crüe, which I completely agree with. I've seen Vince Neil live solo many times. Actually, when I saw him in 2003, like life-changing concert that got me into this music to the level that I have. And it wasn't like the best performance. I actually think he was a little buzzed, but you know, like he looked excited to be up there. And that was part of the attitude. Like he looked like he was having the time of his life, and he no longer looks like that. And that's the thing. I think the whole Mötley Crüe attitude in your 20s, right, when these guys came out of like they want to fuck all the girls and do all the drugs, and that's stuff they've said before, like in their behind the music they did for VH1. That lifestyle is going to catch up with you at a certain point, and Nikki Sixx has certainly lived that, and that's why he's done a total 180. He's been very open on X that he is now a more spiritual person. And people are shocked. He's like, yeah, I go to church with my family. He lives out in Wyoming. And I think it's because at a certain point, like that lifestyle can no longer suit you. And Vince is a guy who is just, for the most part, other than small periods, never slowed down. And I think if you never slow down, it is eventually going to catch up with you. And that makes me think, where is he? Why are they delaying these performances or canceling performances, which they say is due to him? I'm going to give you, I think, the two speculations, right? When Eddie said that there was a, minor thing and then a really major, I think on the more minor end, once again, pure speculation, is that Vince is in rehab. I think that's a very strong possibility. The worst possibility, I would say something like cirrhosis of the liver of some point. I mean, if you sustain however 4 decades or so, however long it is, drinking as much alcohol as he has, I think that's going to catch up with you at some moment. At some time, there are plenty of people who have died from the damage they've done to their liver with the amount of alcohol they've done. And I think if you have decades of alcohol abuse, that will catch up with you, and it's a warning. I want to give some positive in terms of like my feelings about Vince regardless. Vince is the heart and soul in many ways of Mötley Crüe. And I say this because Vince Neil, throughout his career, has flew the flag for that music. He never shied away from what Mötley Crüe stood for, and that's why when he was out there doing his solo run, while Mötley Crüe during '94 went a totally different direction with John Corabi, he was still doing the same type of music pretty much, and at the time sounding great doing it. And if you've ever read The Dirt, you know about the interview where Mötley Crüe were on MTV, and the interviewer asked them about, Mötley Crüe is all about hairspray and fire and girls, and they were offended by that, and they walked out of the interview, and they were like, we've always been more than just that. And Vince Neil said that if they would have said that to me during the interview, I would have said, you know what, I am all about the fire, the hairspray, and the girls, and it's a hell of a lot more fun than being boring and being about nothing. And he's always stuck to that. And that's why throughout his solo career, he's championed all those Mötley Crüe songs and still done all those Mötley Crüe songs live. I think Nikki Sixx would rather be doing something else. And it's evident by when he did Brides of Destruction or 6 a.m. And then like the final Mötley Crüe album, the final full length, he brought on those guys kind of as hired guns to be songwriters, DJ Ashba and James Michael, and it's not really like a Mötley Crüe album. Tommy Lee was doing Methods of Mayhem, and even when they reunited for in '04, whatever it was, '04, '05, VH1 did a special where they had cameras of them meeting for the first time, and Tommy Lee was very vocal and transparent. We said, I can't really get excited about being behind the kit playing Shout at the Devil for the 900th time. And I think he still feels that way and would rather be doing something else. So you may be saying, why don't these guys who are ultra talented, Tommy Lee, Nikki Sixx, and John Five, start a new band and just call it something else? It's very simple. Having the Mötley Crüe name on the marquee brings in a whole lot more dollars. And that's just a fact. And it's not that I think these guys are money hungry. I know you could say that. What I think it is you get used to a certain lifestyle and you need to be able to afford that lifestyle. And I think if Nikki was out with 6 a.m., you know, they're not headlining major festivals. Tommy Lee certainly isn't with Methods of Mayhem. And a guy like Nikki in particular, right, he's got, I believe, a huge place in Wyoming. He's got a place in LA still, I think. And even though they sold the rights to all that stuff, like, you know, he's got a wife, he's got a kid, and I think your lifestyle at a certain point, like, it costs a lot to afford that lifestyle, and the way you do it is still being on the road as Mötley Crüe, but you've lost some of the dignity behind that name, I'll say, rather than tapping out the first time as they should have, I think, when they signed this contract saying we're never coming back, and, you know, now you're on the road 3/4 of the band, and if, you know, right now, 1/2, because Vince is not in the picture. I don't know what's going on, but that is my speculation. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know if I'm correct. I hope I'm wrong, truthfully. I hope Vince is sober and well, and he goes back out there and kicks some ass. That's what I would love to see. But that certainly wasn't the reality the last time I saw them. And it's not fair to the band. It's not fair to the other 3 guys touring as Mötley Crüe, put on a hell of a performance. So hopefully he's okay. Look, I'll always be a Mötley Crüe fan for the rest of my life, and I'll always defend those guys by and large, but I just think something is wrong with Vince, we know, and we'll see what it is sooner or later. But hey, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Check out the merch store if you want to pick out one of these cool mugs to keep your drink hot or cold. And I did a really cool video about when Nikki Sixx joined forces with Tracy Guns of LA Guns and formed the band Brides of Destruction. You can check that out right here. And be sure to stay tuned here to Ian Scotto Rocks.